Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. Come on, let's just give the Lord a hand clap on today. Amen. Let's go. And oh, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. The river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to the movies and I go downtown. They say, boy, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother. I say, brother, help me please. But it winds up knocking me back down on my knees. And oh, it's been times that I thought I wouldn't last too long, but I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you. Amazing, amazing. That song still speaks to us in 2022, and change is still coming, and not a minute too soon. Hello, everyone. My name is Sherry Solis, and I am with Stand Up for Black Lives Plus, Prairie Village. And speaking of change, welcome everyone to Prairie Village's first official recognition celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his work for justice and equality. And we are so thrilled that you have joined us here today to celebrate and honor the legacy of Dr. King. Here with me is my husband, Dennis, and we are longtime residents of Prairie Village, and we feel very honored to be a part of this gathering. And we have just really can't express how much we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this and to see all your faces today. It's huge. Anyways, we're honored, and we are also very honored to be able to tell you why we're here today.
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, everyone. I, too, am a member of Stand Up for Black Lives Plus, and I am also a member of Prairie Village's first Diversity Committee, which was started about a year and a half ago by our mayor, Eric Mikkelson. There is no doubt that we are here to celebrate the profound contribution and life of Dr. King. But we are also here for something else, and that is to collectively continue the work for justice and equality. Now, you know what they say, change begins at home. I'm guessing that most of us here are from Prairie Village. Sherry and I have lived in Prairie Village for 32 years, and we are so grateful for the opportunities and the pluses of our city. But we have always struggled with our city's lack of diversity. Maybe you have as well. The truth is, Prairie Village has been a great city for some, but not for all. And when we are familiar with the history of our city, it becomes clear that our lack of diversity was intentional. But, as the song says, a change is gonna come, and it must come. We hope that this service, this gathering will be helpful. It will be encouraging and informative, and it will help us carry on the work that Dr. King did, and also it will bring about the change that will make Prairie Village an even better place to call home.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Sherry. Hey, good afternoon, friends. Oh, we are going to try again. Good afternoon, friends. Yes. I'm so glad that you are there. It is a delight to welcome you on behalf of our senior pastor, Tom R., on behalf of our session, and members of Village Presbyterian Church, a number of whom are sitting around you. If you are a member of Village Presbyterian Church, raise your hand. These are the folks to ask where the bathrooms are, just so you know. We are so glad and so honored here at Village Church to welcome you on this day. We have been at this place for 72 years this month, and hoping and praying by the grace of God that we would help bring justice and righteousness not just to this place, but indeed to the whole world, to which we are called to love. If we know one thing, if Dr. King taught us one thing, if we hope that change is going to come, we know that it's going to come together. That we do this best when we are together with folks around us, that we cannot do this journey, this hard work, this joy-filled work, this justice work by ourselves. So we need to do this together. The fact that you are here together with one another is a sign of all things that are good and God's grace in the world. So I would like to invite you, as you are able and as you can be safe. So don't get all crazy and be doing all touchy stuff if you feel uncomfortable. But you got to get up and you got to share some sign of peace with people around you. Now that could be this, that's fine. It could be just a wave or a smile. It could be a fist bump. It could be an elbow. It could be something that you want to say just to say, I am glad that you are here this afternoon and that we are in this together, all of us. Friends, just for a moment, I invite you to stand up and look around and say hello to your neighbors.
Good afternoon, everybody. So glad that you're here with us today. I'm Melissa Finaro, and I'm also with Stand Up for Black Lives Plus Prairie Village. For more than a century, Lift Every Voice and Sing has held a powerful place in American history. The hymn is known as the Black National Anthem, but it's more than that. It's a history lesson, a rallying cry, a pledge of unity, and as people gather to fight for equality and justice, it's an ever-present refrain. Lift Every Voice and Sing was written as a poem by NAACP leader James Weldon Johnson. His brother, John Rosamond Johnson, composed the music for the lyrics. They worked together their whole lives, first in show business and later in the pursuit of civil rights. The brothers saw artistic and cultural excellence as a key to Black advancement in America. Today, we have the pleasure to hear two Johnson County NAACP members, Ms. Ruby Kirkwood, accompanied by Timothy Bailey, performing the Black National Anthem. We ask that you stand with us, please, and sing along to Lift Every Voice and Sing. You can also find it as hymn number 339.
Thank you so much, Ruby and Timothy. That was beautiful. Hi, I'm Prairie Village City Councilwoman Inga Selders. I also serve as chair as the Prairie Village Diversity Committee. The history of housing here in Prairie Village mirrors that of many suburbs throughout the U.S. The following video provides a quick overview of the culture and policies that were the foundation on which Prairie Village was built, the effects of which still greatly impact our community to this day. Thank you.
Housing and the housing system is not a simple thing to unpack. The history of housing is not a simple thing. And the implications of it become far more reaching when you have all of this system around being able to purchase a home. Coming out of the New Deal, the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration created a lot of different programs and bureaucracies. Two of those were the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, and the HOLC, the Homeowners Loan Corporation. And it was really to help people purchase homes. They were sort of unattainable coming out of the Great Depression. After the war, most people owned cars. Soldiers were coming back, getting married. They didn't want to live in their parents' or grandparents' old houses anymore. Suburbs really sprang up for the first time, especially in post-war Johnson County. There was a large influx of people coming from Kansas City and buying and building homes here. That regionalism is really very tightly ingrained. And so the population starts to go out of that urban core and into this new thing really called a suburb. There's this real consumerism and American dream. This is a chance for a new generation to have opportunity, to have your own backyard, your suburban oasis. People wanted these things, and the HOLC and the FHA provided that. But they were providing it for white families. Very explicitly in their manual, they did not work with African American families to provide mortgage insurance. So this is a system that's put in place by the federal government to benefit white families in suburban neighborhoods. And so in order to codify neighborhoods to know if they were worthy of getting mortgage insurance, essentially, the HOLC went around with appraisers and figured out what that neighborhood looked like, what the ranking was. Green is the best, brand new houses, all white populations, probably with restrictions on it to make sure it stays white. Red would be a neighborhood that smaller houses, in disrepair, definitely minority populations, African Americans, Jewish families. African American families in Kansas City were probably renting in those red line neighborhoods. They weren't owning their homes. It was difficult to sell. So that wealth wasn't there. That generational building of wealth because of owning property and owning a home wasn't there. Not everyone who was moving to the suburbs was racist and doing it for racial reasons, right? Your average person probably didn't understand the ramifications of the FHA and the HOLC. Certainly there were people who did, and certainly there were people who were moving out of the urban core to avoid neighborhoods that were going to have minority encroachment, right, as they were calling it. And some folks are fleeing that because they know that's happening and they want something in a community where that won't happen. Deed restrictions had been around for a long time, actually. They're used really in the early 20th century on individual properties to make sure that that particular property stayed in white hands. And there was a real fear about this block busting, that a family might sell to an African American family and then the whole rest of the block would go down the drain, right, was sort of the phrase. A lot of the talk at the time is talking about home values and how if a minority population moves into a neighborhood, the home values will plummet. Well, there's really little evidence of that, and the FHA didn't ever provide any proof that that was actually happening. And in a lot of ways, today we can look back at the economics, and those integrated neighborhoods, actually, the home values stay higher because you have African American families buying houses. So on the surface of it, it looks like Kansas City and Johnson County is very typical and very average and sort of playing along with every other city. But actually, in a lot of ways, Kansas City is leading this suburban trend, right? Because J.C. Nichols is a huge name in the suburbanization, in building large-scale neighborhoods and marketing them to middle-class and upper-class families. He takes this thing that's already in place, the racial covenant, the deed restriction, and he says, for a real estate developer that's developing a large neighborhood, that's not good enough. We need to do it on the neighborhood level. And so he creates neighborhood associations, homes associations, for his neighborhoods that he's developing. And he says, if you buy here, you have to sign on to all these bylaws that his company's created. And one of those is almost always no African American families can own, lease, live, rent this property. And that's why we see a Johnson County that we do today that's still over 80% white. Certainly there's more minority populations moving into Johnson County. There's certainly a larger percentage of African American families. But these decades of restriction and undesirable place to live if you're not white, that hangs over Johnson County and leaves a legacy in many different ways. There's a lot of fighting against these policies up until the 1960s, and eventually that translates in 1968 to the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act. It calls those deed restrictions unconstitutional. There's probably not as much change as people would like to see, even though those deed restrictions are no longer enforced and it's unconstitutional. It takes time for that to change because minority families weren't able for decades to move into those neighborhoods. And just because they legally can now, it doesn't mean that they have the means to do so. It doesn't mean they have the desire to do so either. There's a perception that needs to be changed as well about how accessible those neighborhoods are.
My name is Sydney Williams.
And I'm Tim Williams.
And we're graduates from Shawnee Mission East.
We're here to introduce our pops.
Dr. George Williams is a leader serving Kansas foster children at Cornerstones of Care.
He's also the leader of the grassroots social justice group, Stand Up for Black Lives, plus Prairie Village, and a member of the Prairie Village Diversity Committee, who are both sponsors of today's event.
Up next, our dad will share a 3-part poem that recognizes the past King dream, the current reality of a dream deferred, and the future hope of a realized dream.
Please welcome Dr. George, and listen closely as he recites I Have a Dream. Home.
He, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had a dream. And yet for some of his neighbors, it seemed the advancement of justice should be put on hold. And for others, his dream vehemently opposed. His dream included Americans 100 years free, still fighting injustice, still struggling for equality. A dream of American promises for all, broken, not kept. 1 billion tears shed by black citizens who suffered, died, and wept. He had a dream of more than dirt plantation or sharecropper floors, more than segregated public housing, ghetto doors. His dream for equal access to ownership demands to share in this vast prosperity of our two freedom land. He had a dream. Standing up together for freedom was his message of hope. His life ended prematurely when hatred and a bullet eloped. And today it's up to us if his dream is to be realized. So let love, justice, compassion for all come alive. I have a dream home. Welcome all neighbors, the hard truth to hear. It'll stir up good trouble. Let that be clear. Neighbors, please stop lying asleep to the truth known. Neighbors, honestly awake and act on the truth shown. I have a dream home. Enslaved forefathers, forced immigrants, yet we were born here. And now there's no other place that is so passionately dear. We needed to be a free home and a brave land. It's 400 years too late to send us away, but not too late to atone. I have a dream home. We now live in America, but not always welcomed here. The chameleon of rejection, oppression, terrorism confirms that fear. Today, shifting power swings puts justice under attack. Too many times, no steps forward, 400 steps back. I have a dream home. They question, why do you want to live in our neighborhood? What? Am I not like you, just seeking my child's good? Asking that question tears a human soul apart. Is it indifference, fear, or hatred that resides in your heart? I have a dream home, kept out by deeds, covenants, burning crosses, and the Klan. Can you not see a brother, sister in the cocoa skin of woman, man? Affinity bias, it's natural to be comfortable with those like us. but hatred is unnatural if in God we trust. I have a dream home. Though America's dreams were built on our backs, bright neon excluding red lines are very clear on the map. Unfounded fears of personal and property values in doubt, the systems of racism have kicked us out. I have a dream home, a physical and social structure where I belong, where family and neighbors are standing together strong, a dream home where I can be myself, invited in the sharing of property wealth. I have a dream home where I am seen, not ignored, but valued, esteemed. A dream home where I'm heard, sharing my trauma, not brushed off as absurd. I have a dream home where I am included, not feeling like I'm the one who's intruded. A dream home where I am given respect, not singled out by the police as suspect. I have a dream home compassionate eyes can see while joining in to celebrate with me. A dream home where I am finally free, enjoying the full benefits of liberty. I've got to preach. You've got this dream home, so why not love your neighbor? Welcome them home. Together we're greater. You have this dream home. Why not give back? Walk humbly. Serve others. Do justice. Act. Walk humbly. Serve others. Do justice. Act. Amen. So be it. Amen and amen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for those watching online. My name is Destiny Costley, and I'm with the Johnson County NAACP, and I have the pleasure of introducing Elijah Williams. Elijah is the founder of Bishop Concierge, LLC, a unique, affordable, and alternative transportation company that serves in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. He is also the co-founder of Heartland Valet, an eco-friendly trash removal service for commercial and residential communities in the Johnson County area. He currently serves as our newly elected first vice president for the Johnson County NAACP. With over 20 years of combined experience within the medical field and business operations, Elijah has traveled to Europe on medical missions as a surgical assistant, providing medical supplies, performing surgical procedures, and served as an international health liaison for those in need of better healthcare reform for the youth and elderly in Romania. Elijah has a passion for encouraging and educating the community about the importance of having a servant leadership mindset. Personal health and economic development and continued support of vocational education and training institutions are key to the continued success for our current generation and the next. He believes when alternative approaches are applied to common problems, the answers that are learned become an experience that everyone can become involved in. And when youth are involved, everyone can witness a better future. Here's Elijah Williams.
Good day, everyone. I'm going to try that again. Good day, everyone. There we go. Let me tell you right now, this is such a beautiful sight to see since the years that we've been having and the challenges and some of the losses. I'm glad to see each and every one of you, your face, your smiles, hearing your voices. This right now gives me hope to know that the vision and the dream is real. Growing up in the South, many generations of my family connected to our community by serving in the careers within the civil, military, education, healthcare, and entrepreneurship professions. So it has been natural to go ahead and continue this legacy with my family, community, and business interests. So to understand the true nature of one's legacy, you might first identify how it is built. The building material, just like in a home, for a legacy, we have to give recognition to those moving parts, how they come together. And today we give great recognition to a man that was a profound minister, an author, an advocate of equality, a family man, a talented speaker, a seeker of truth and justice. He met every challenge he faced head on. And by the time he went home to be with the Lord, he was already an American icon. Who we speak of today is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was born Michael Luther King Jr., but later in life changed his name to Martin. His father and his grandfather were pastors of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. The family's legacies served there since 1914. And from 1960 until his death, Martin Luther King Jr. acted as co-pastor alongside of his father. Martin attended segregated public schools in Georgia, but he was a bright student and graduated from high school at the age of 15. He was allowed to skip 9th grade and 12th grade because of that. He later would be receiving his bachelor's from Morehouse College in 1948, which was one of our distinguished schools in Atlanta. Both his father and his grandfather attended. Martin also would obtain his bachelor in divinity in 51, when enrolled in graduate studies at Boston University, and there receiving his PhD. While in Boston, he met Coretta Scott, a beautiful, intelligent woman who shared the same passion for equality as he did. As the years progressed, they began to build a family with 2 sons and 2 daughters. Dr. King began his long life fight for civil rights in 1955. The same year, he became pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Dr. King took his new role seriously when Rosa Parks, an Alabama seamstress, was arrested on a public bus. At that time, the law did not allow people of different races to ride in the same sections of the bus. During this time, Dr. King had held a position as an executive committee member of the NAACP, leading the leading civil rights activity at that time. The outcry from this unjustifiable outcome would spark a change in American history. Dr. King and the NAACP would organize the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. The boycott lasted 382 days. Within those days, Dr. King would be arrested, his home would be bombed, and he would be subject to personal abuse. But through it all, the boycott would be effective. On December 21st, 1956, the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional of all the laws requiring segregation on the buses. This victory would ignite a nonviolent movement that would reach across the nation. Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech would draw a crowd of nearly 250,000 people. He would give one of the greatest proclamations ever made based on that we should not be judged by the color of our skin, but rather by the content of our character. Because of his profound actions towards civil injustice, Dr. King would receive the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 35. With great notoriety for the cause for a better world for all humankind, Dr. King understood that there would be many who would oppose this vision for equality. On the sad day of April 4th, 1968, a sniper ended his beautiful and ambitious life while standing on the balcony of his motel room in Memphis, Tennessee. The world mourned a great leader of change that day. When understanding legacy and the building materials needed to begin this work, Dr. King understood his assignment. And while he was still with us, he knew to see change, you had to become change. So today, there is still change. There's still an assignment that's required from all of us. And that is for us to keep the work going when the change is needed to be seen. when the innocent and the less fortunate are mistreated. We all have a responsibility to do what is humanly right. History has shown that there is strength in numbers. So let us be the many that are numbered in the belief that the legacy of peace, justice, and equality for all still speaks to us today. Let us not keep quiet. Let us not sit in stillness. Let us not consume ignorance, but let us be aware of the legacy of peace, justice, and equality. My family has strong ties to Dr. King. We are fortunate to have served in his church, been amongst his family, and even to the point where I can call him my great-great-uncle. And for that, that gives me hope to see this beautiful congregation and the people from all around come together on one cause on this day and this month to recognize the beautiful opportunity to see change. And that is what I see today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samantha Feinberg, and I am a member of Stand Up for Black Lives Plus, a teacher at Shawnee Mission East High School, and staff advisor of the Shawnee Mission East chapter of Race Project Kansas City. Race Project is honored to be included in today's observance. Race Project is now in 20 local high schools throughout the Kansas City metro. When two friends and I founded Race Project Kansas City in 2014, we knew that when we centered the voices of youngsters, a change was going to come. When we tap into students' hunger for justice, equity, and belonging, the activism that results from a refusal to accept things simply as they are and as they have been ushers in the change that's going to come. In these brief video clips created by students, Race Project KC participants share some thoughts on the concept of dream homes and some changes they hope for in the future.
I think it'd be cool to like more interesting things than we have here in Kansas. If I lived in DC, I could go visit the Smithsonian museums, or New York City. There are just so many interesting places around New York City. It just makes it a really interesting place to live. And because of that, I'm not really a huge fan of Prairie Village. There's not a lot of public transportation. Everything's kind of spaced out because, it's suburban. So you have to, you can't really walk anywhere, and you have to drive a car. It's kind of bad for the environment and things like that. And also, at least in my area, it's not very diverse. It's very, upper white, middle class. And just in general, the area's, just too suburban for me.
My dream home would have to be someplace where I have a lot of access to different places, because I never really want to stay inside. I think having a nice view would be a great way to wake up in the morning, but also being able to live near a park or someplace that's close to the city to easily commute would be the ideal place to live.
My dream city? I don't want to live somewhere I've lived all my life. I want to be somewhere different. Somewhere I'm not used to, but great views, like I said. I don't really look for the population inside a city. I just pick and go, I guess. I don't plan too much. So, what is my dream city? Honestly, anywhere where I feel comfortable or challenged.
I think my dream home is probably a place where there's honestly a lot of diversity and different viewpoints, just because I really like that discussion. I like the different viewpoints that people bring, the different experiences that they have, and how that all kind of intersects into one kind of community. My dream city is probably just somewhere in France. I just kind of want to go to France. And Prairie Village really isn't my dream city, just because there's not too much diversity here. I moved from Lawrence in 6th grade, and there was a ton more diversity there. Not a ton, but there was at least more than Prairie Village, and it brought a bunch of different viewpoints, and it just felt like a less, not just sheltered community, but more of a colorful community, I guess.
And my dream city is probably New York. Prairie Village, I don't think I would want to continue living here. I like the community and I like the people here, but there's no viable public transit really.
And I kind of need that wherever I want to live, I guess. So I guess my dream home would be somewhere where I have community and I know people, because to a certain extent, whenever I think of a home, I think of something like secure and safe for me and the people around me, where I feel wanted and am wanted. And that's important to me. And I'd say Prairie Village would not be my own personal dream city, just because there are a lot of places where I feel as though interaction, I guess, is taken away. For example, it granted is a walkable community, but it's not like an incredibly walkable community. And I think that I guess I wish we had more interaction with other people on a day-to-day basis within Prairie Village as a whole.
You can edit out any laugh. All right, go for it.
My dream home is a modern house, and my dream city is New York, and I would not want to stay in Prairie Village because I want to explore the world.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ruby Wagner. I'd like to introduce my father, Jacob Wagner. He is an associate professor of urban planning and design at UMKC and has helped to establish the UMKC Center for Neighborhoods.
Good afternoon, and thank you to all the members of the Planning Committee, but I also wanted to thank our amazing sign language interpreter, if we could give her a round of applause. I have to do that because I only gave her my words like 30 minutes ago. So. Anyway, thank you to Dr. George and Trudy Williams for their amazing leadership to make this happen today. Thank you to my colleagues at the UMKC Center for Neighborhoods, Ms. LaMonica Upton, who's here with me today. Thank you to my lovely wife, Kate, and our son, Joseph, as well as Ruby, who just introduced me, and my parents for their support. There's a phrase that often is repeated. It was very common around World War II, and it was erroneously claimed to be a Chinese proverb, and it said, "May you live in interesting times." And it turns out there's really no Chinese proverb that it dates back to. Not surprising, right? White people do that a lot, apparently. So there is a Chinese phrase, though, that's interesting. It says, "Better to be a dog in times of tranquility than a human being in times of chaos." Unfortunately, my friends, we live in interesting, consequential, and chaotic times here today. The great African-American musician and songwriter Donny Hathaway and Roberta Flack sang it and said, "Trying times is what the world is talking about. You've got confusion all over the land. You've got mother against daughter, father against son, and the whole thing is getting out of hand." We are back in that moment again, my friends, like a bad rerun of a movie we didn't want to repeat. We live in interesting, chaotic, and trying times. And yet, today, this afternoon, is special and important. It's a welcoming moment. It's a warm moment. You can come in from the cold and wrap a warm blanket of community around you as we support each other in this work. And this, of course, is the heart of the message that Dr. King lived to create here in America, to overcome our differences, to work for peace, to work for justice, and to support and love one another. Love, not hate, is the historical force that will continue to help us face the challenges that we face today. The climate crisis, this racial reckoning, the COVID-19 pandemic, and now a war in Europe. So we are here today to work for peace. That was what Dr. King lived for, to work for racial justice. And he knew that there was no way to work for racial justice and affordable housing and sustainable communities if we weren't also working for a more peaceful and demilitarized society. He saw the devastation of Vietnam and the battlefields and the soldiers who came back, mirrored in the disinvestment and the devastation in black neighborhoods in the 1960s. He wrote about them in one of his most important speeches, Beyond Vietnam. It's a speech I actually have my students read because it's one that a lot of people don't know about. And in that speech, he talks about the triple threat of racism, militarism, and extreme materialism as the three evils in American society. I encourage you to go find it and read it if you have a chance this weekend. We gather today only 54 years after Dr. King's untimely death. I have a dream home, today's theme, inspired by Dr. King and brought to us by Dr. George Williams. Dr. King's speech, the most familiar speech, but he was a man on a mission. According to the Nobel Peace Prize between 1957 and 1968, is that Dr. King? Let me say that again. Somebody's calling. Between 1957 and 68, he traveled more than 6 million miles, and he spoke more than 2,500 times. He was a man compelled to change the trajectory of the American experience of race and injustice. And we are here today to pick up where he left off. So what does housing justice, what does racial justice, what does housing equity look like in Prairie Village? That's the question before us today. The good Dr. John Powell writes that there's no path to justice, racial justice, that does not lead through the door of housing justice. These two things are inextricably linked in the United States. If you want racial justice, you must work for housing and housing equity and justice. And what does this mean for Prairie Village? I'm glad we're here. I'm glad the mayor is here. I'm glad Council Member Selders is here, because it means this moment has arrived for this place to think deeply about what is our role, what is our responsibility. There are parts of Prairie Village that are 96 to 99% white, and there are parts of this metro where neighborhoods are 99% African American. That's not an accident. That didn't happen just because of choice. This geographic fact of racial segregation is undeniable. In fact, in the 1980s, Kansas City reached near apartheid levels of racial segregation. We've made progress, but progress is not inevitable. We've done a lot of work, and Kansas City is becoming less segregated, but we have a lot of work to do still to this day. It was estimated last year that over 550,000 people are without a home every night in America. Think about that for a moment. That's the entire city of Prairie Village and the entire population of Kansas City, Missouri combined that are currently homeless, and that was last year. And we know it's worse now. So we have work to do. We have work to do. We need to move beyond charity, because housing justice means moving beyond charity as the #1 way to address poverty. We need to address the political, economic reforms in Prairie Village, in Kansas City, in the metro, and around the country to create the kind of structural reforms that will make the elimination of poverty and addressing injustice possible. Housing stability is so absolutely critical for the health of our democracy and the resolution of the deep conflicts that we see today in American society. How did we get here? How did we arrive at a place where there's so much racial injustice that is deeply linked to our housing market and the economy of shelter? Prairie Village was built after World War II, as you saw in the video, platted in 1941, named in 1949 one of the best planned communities in America. Incorporated in the state of Kansas, 1951. And yes, the city reflects the planning and real estate vision of J.C. Nichols and the Nichols Company. The city reflects a city built after redlining after Shelley versus Kramer in 1948, when racially restrictive covenants were unenforceable. They didn't go away, and they lasted for another 40 years. And so we have a Prairie Village that is deeply racially segregated. And Johnson County, Kansas remains a deeply white place. So where do we go from here, beyond the Prairie Village, the perfect village trope? Certainly the access to housing was a fundamental purpose of why Prairie Village was developed. And that ability of families to buy their first home is harder and harder for more and more Americans. And it's becoming harder here in Prairie Village as we see increasing land values, tear down of the original homes, and redevelopment of larger homes that are even more expensive. So housing continues to increase in costs, and that's a huge challenge. We need you to join us in this challenge of thinking about the role of public policy, the role of what we can do together to create a beloved community here in Prairie Village, to open up Prairie Village. We've gotten used to demolition and reconstruction. And that means we can get used to demolition for other kinds of more diverse housing, for duplexes, for other kinds of affordable homes that people can access on a more affordable wage. So we need to look at this pattern that's happening in Prairie Village, do what we can to slow down the demolition of the housing that we have, and look at diversifying and creating a more diverse housing stock as well as a more welcoming community, and tonight is certainly part of that process. So I want to thank the mayor, I want to thank council member Selders, and all of the group Stand Up for Black Lives Plus for their leadership today, and we'd like you to continue the conversation with us on Sunday, April 3rd at 2:30 p.m. at the Meadowbrook Clubhouse. We'll be continuing this conversation around housing policy and racial justice in Johnson County, Kansas. Thank you all so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trudy Williams, and I'm with Stand Up for Black Lives Plus Prairie Village.
And I'm Charlotte Davison with Village Church. This afternoon, we are recognizing a family who brought racial integration to Johnson County neighborhoods. You might call Donald Sewing a real estate militant. His business is selling houses and integrating white suburbs. That's how a 1969 Wall Street Journal story began about the late Donald Sewing, a real estate broker who quietly brought Black families into our community. Donald Sewing, a UMKC graduate, a veteran of the Korean War, he believed that housing integration could help people see beyond differences. So he set out to strategically scatter Black home buyers throughout the county's white neighborhoods, starting with his own family. In 1967, Donald and Virginia Sewing and their 3 children became the first Black family to live in previously all-white Fairway. Their move made headlines, attracted curious onlookers, and a picketer to whom they offered refreshments. They received threats of violence as well as warm welcomes. They joined Village Church, where their son Henry serves as an elder. According to Andrew Gustafson of the Johnson County Museum, Donald Sewing's efforts broke the ice for other realtors in Johnson County to start working with people of color, and allowed more white homeowners to get used to living to someone who didn't look like them. By 1971, Donald he'd helped 60 Black families purchase homes in this community. Meanwhile, Virginia Sewing, she guided her children through their family's move to a white neighborhood and white schools. She served as the PTA president of Rosedale Elementary School
and on the Shawnee Mission School District Advisory Board. She was trained as a nurse, and she became a successful businesswoman. She has spent her life working on civil rights issues and has mentored elected officials in Wyandotte County and Johnson County. We honor Virginia and the late Donald Sewing for their courage and visionary spirit in leading the way for Prairie Village to become a more welcoming community for all people.
Yes. And I am honored to present the first, what is it? Sorry, I forgot the name of the award. Civil Rights Pioneer Award in honor of civil rights pioneers Virginia and Donald Sewing, who spearheaded a metropolitan movement to integrate Johnson County, Kansas. Thank you.
Can the Sewing stand up, please?
You want to take it down? Looks like he's coming.
Oh my gosh, that was great. Thank you to the LINC Mighty Wild Eagles drill team and drumline, to the young ladies and the young gentlemen, their leaders, and their families who are here today. Thank you so much for being a part of our program. I'm Gretchen Nice. I'm a member of Stand Up for Black Lives Plus Prairie Village. Today I have the honor of introducing the mayor of Prairie Village, Eric Mikkelson. First elected as Ward 3 council member in 2014, Mayor Mikkelson has served as mayor since 2018 and has recently announced he will run for a second term. Mayor Mikkelson has been an avid supporter and participant in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in Prairie Village. On behalf of today's organizers, we are grateful to have Mayor Mikkelson speak. I now welcome Mayor Mikkelson to share with us his Village Vision 2.0.
Thank you, Gretchen. After that, and all the speakers and performances and poetry and education, I'll tell you, my heart is full, my eyes are watering, and my ears are ringing a little bit. I was right next to him there. Dr. King, after taking the Birmingham mayor to task a little bit in his letter from a Birmingham jail in 1963, said that there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. Well, let me tell you, we've been creating a little bit of constructive, nonviolent tension in City Hall over the last few years. With the help of Stand Up for Black Lives Plus, the City Council, many of whom are here, including Inga Elders, and the Johnson County NAACP, and most importantly, all the residents of Prairie Village. Before I get into some of the details of what we've done and what we're going to be doing, I want to recognize a few people and groups. First, if you'll allow me a few moments of silence. Our sister city for Prairie Village is Dolnya, Ukraine. Could we have a moment of silence for the residents of that city and all the people of Ukraine who at this moment are undergoing the most horrific conditions imaginable? Next, there's somebody here who must be recognized, and that is a 27-year veteran of our Prairie Village Police Force, a Marine who it was one of my greatest honors as mayor so far to appoint as our Prairie Village Police Chief. Byron Roberson is here. Would you stand? He's the first African American. Long overdue, the first African-American police chief of any Johnson County city in history, is here with his family, including his mother is here, I believe. Thanks for your service, sir. The man who promoted him, nurtured his career over the years, our city administrator, Wes Jordan, is here as well. I'd like to recognize him and all of our Prairie Village staff. Wes. As Pastor Solis said, I share his high opinion of Prairie Village. As great as it is in almost every category, I've always believed its greatest opportunity for improvement is its lack of diversity, not just racial diversity, but religious diversity, LGBTQ diversity, and otherwise. Not only will this make us a stronger city, this, I believe, is a moral imperative given some of the less than innocent reasons we've heard about and we're all familiar with for why we're such a homogeneous city. We clearly got some work to do on diversity, and then maybe we can keep some of those Shawnee Mission East teenagers here in Prairie Village for the long term. So here's a few things we've done and are going to be doing. First and foremost, we, over a period of a couple years and multiple public meetings, surveys, public council meetings, planning commission meetings, we developed a comprehensive plan called the Village Vision 2.0. It's called the 2040 Comprehensive Plan because it is really a blueprint for our city for the next 20 years or so. Now, we can revisit this from time to time. But some of the things that are in this blueprint include acknowledgement that we have work to do in the area of affordable housing and some action items to make Prairie Village more affordable. Attainable housing, workforce housing, these are defined terms in this document. You can pick up a copy of this at City Hall or download it from our website. I'd encourage you to familiarize yourself with it, and we'd love your feedback on it. As I said, it's an ongoing process. There's Dr. King again. It also mentions the diversity of housing aspect and how important that is to maintain a healthy community. And we have, as an offshoot of this and some other work that United Community Services has done, we've formed a housing committee here in Prairie Village that is concluding its work, and this spring will be making specific recommendations to the City Council, including some zoning recommendations to address that missing middle and some other things we can do in Prairie Village to encourage more diverse people, socioeconomically and otherwise, to continue to live, to come to Prairie Village. Looking forward to that report from our Housing Committee. We also, as many people here are, including Dr. Williams, his wife Trudy has been a part of it, Dennis Solis, others, we formed a diversity committee during the summer of the George Floyd and this amazing, colorful rally and march that was organized by Stand Up for Black Lives Plus Prairie Village. Maybe of you participated in it. I had never seen such diversity in Prairie Village before in my life. I think it positively transformed our community. And partly to capture some of that momentum, we formed the Diversity Committee. That's been hard at work with events like this, many others. We had a joyous Juneteenth celebration. We've expanded diversity and equity inclusion training throughout City Hall and many other initiatives. Its main mission is to make Prairie Village more welcoming for current and prospective diverse residents. Looking forward to more good work and recommendations from that group. I wasn't going to mention it, but because it was so important to so many of those kids, I also want to mention we've been implementing a new bike and pedestrian plan throughout Prairie Village. We have a lot of work to do there, but over the last few years, we've become a much more bicycle and pedestrian-friendly city, and we're going to keep going that direction. It's hard, turns out, to retrofit a city that was built for cars. We're trying our best. With your help, we're going to get more done. And that also makes it more affordable, more attainable for young professionals just starting out, because when you talk to the experts, housing, the cost of housing and affordability has as much to do with whether you have to own a car where you work or not as anything else. 3 direct cash rebate programs we've either created or expanded in the last 3 years in Prairie Village. One is a property tax rebate with an income threshold that just started this year, where seniors on a fixed income, other folks who are struggling in Prairie Village with their property taxes can apply to City Hall for a direct cash rebate. We also have a new sustainability rebate program where anybody needing to improve their home, for example, an expensive furnace, HVAC upgrade, if you do it to an energy efficiency standard, you can get some help, some cash from City Hall. And then the final program there is an exterior grant program that we've had for many years, but we've expanded. If you need to do some exterior grant work and your home qualifies as one of the lower, below a threshold of appraised value, we'll help you do that exterior grant improvement. We've got a lot more to do. We'll need your help with it, but this is just a summary of what we're doing in Prairie Village. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this program today.
I just want to say thank you to,
Stay standing, it won't be that long.
We're on the verge of dismissal. I just want to thank Village Presbyterian Church. I mean, they have just been such a strong partner in this. Thank you so much. And also the City of Prairie Village for the Diversity Committee committed some funds to it. So appreciative. And for all of you, I just want to encourage you, one of our next steps is that town hall meeting, April 3rd, at the Meadowbrook Clubhouse. And you can look at our website, the Prairie Village website, to find out more information. And then also for our next Juneteenth, it's going to be June 19th, we have something really family fun planned, so we want to ask you to get that on your calendar.
Hey friends. So you're invited to leave this sanctuary and come right out here to our Welcome Center. There are 9 different community organizations who have tables and representatives there. They would be delighted to get your personal information and to have you participate. There's also some refreshments out there, and also there are some at-home free COVID test kits available to you, limited number, but available to you as well. Hey, that someday about which we just sang, that someday feels a little closer because look around. Your presence here, even in the back row of the balcony, yes, I do see you, your presence here helps bring that someday just a little bit closer. So friends, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and grant you peace on this day for our community, for our nation, and please, O Lord, for this world. Amen and amen. Go in peace.